The stench was unbearable, a tidal wave of decay that clung to the summer air, but the guards were under strict orders. Say nothing, because inside the magnificent, dragon-emblazoned carriage at the center of the convoy, the most powerful man on earth had been rotting for weeks. This is the story of how an empire was ruled by a dead man, and how the desperate plot to hide his corpse led to the destruction of a dynasty. This is the case of the emperor who rotted on his own throne. Welcome, Seeker, to the Obscuria Vault. Today we unseal the file on Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. This wasn't just any king. He was a figure of terrifying ambition. He was the man who unified a nation, built the foundations of the Great Wall, and created an army of 8,000 terracotta soldiers to guard his tomb. But he was also a paranoid tyrant, haunted by assassins and obsessed with one thing: cheating death. He dispatched fleets to find mythical islands of the immortals. He consulted alchemists who promised him the elixir of life. Ironically, that very obsession would be his undoing. In 210 BC, while on a grand tour of his eastern territories, the emperor's quest for eternal life came to a very sudden and very final end. And for the men in his inner circle, the real nightmare was just beginning. The emperor's death was a catastrophic secret. His official heir, the capable but headstrong Prince Fusu, was miles away on the northern frontier. More importantly, Fusu was an enemy of the men who now stood beside the emperor's cooling body: Li Shi, the conniving prime minister, and Zhao Gao, the ambitious and cruel chief eunuch. They knew that if Fusu took the throne, their heads would be the first to roll. So, in the sweltering heat of a remote province, a conspiracy was born. They couldn't announce the emperor's death. They had to get the body back to the capital, Xianyang, hundreds of miles away. They had to forge the emperor's will, replace the rightful heir with a puppet, and seize control of the entire empire. And to do that, they had to pretend the emperor was still alive. The deception was audacious. The imperial carriage, with its silk curtains drawn, became a rolling tomb. Each day, Zhao Gao would enter the carriage alone to discuss matters of state with the silent emperor. He would emerge with fabricated decrees and forged orders, his face a perfect mask of loyalty. Servants, under the watchful eyes of guards loyal to the plot, would present meals at the carriage door, which were then discreetly removed, untouched. The convoy continued its slow, stately pace across the empire, a funeral procession disguised as a royal tour. But they couldn't fool nature. The summer heat was relentless. Inside the sealed, unventilated carriage, the emperor's body began to decompose with horrifying speed. First came the smell, a faint, sweet, sickly odor that the conspirators tried to ignore. But within a week, it had intensified into a suffocating stench of putrefaction that even the thick carriage walls couldn't contain. Guards began to murmur. Servants grew pale. The secret was literally leaking into the air. This is where the plot descends into true grotesque madness. Zhao Gao, in a moment of desperate genius, came up with a solution. He ordered the imperial convoy to purchase a massive quantity of fish from the local villages. Carts laden with salted, rotting fish were placed directly in front of and behind the emperor's carriage. The logic was as simple as it was disgusting. You can't smell a rotting man if everything around him smells like rotting fish. Imagine the scene. A magnificent imperial procession, the symbol of absolute power and divine order, crawling across the Chinese countryside, enveloped in a cloud of death. The guards choking on the dual stench, the flies swarming in black clouds, the local villagers bowing down to a carriage that was nothing more than a mobile septic tank. For over 2 months, this ghastly parade continued. The most powerful man in the world was dead, and a dead fish was his air freshener. Finally, they reached the capital. With the corpse safely hidden, the final phase of the plan clicked into place. Zhao Gao and Li Se produced the forged will. It was a masterpiece of political assassination. The decree, stamped with the emperor's stolen seal, stripped Prince Fusu of his title and, accusing him of disloyalty, ordered him to commit suicide. A similar order was sent to his most loyal protector, General Meng Tian. Tragically, Fusu was a man of honor. Believing the order was truly from his father, he took his own life. General Meng Tian, though he suspected a plot, was imprisoned and forced to follow suit. The path was now clear. The forged will named the emperor's youngest, most pliable son, Hu Hai, as the successor. The corpse had done its job. The empire had a new, weak-willed emperor, and Zhao Gao had his puppet. The deception was a success, but it was the beginning of the end. The Qin Dynasty, built by a titan, was now in the hands of a shadow government led by a eunuch. Hu Hai, the puppet emperor, was inept and cruel. Rebellions, already simmering under his father's tyranny, exploded across the nation. The terracotta army would never serve its master. The Great Wall would not protect a dynasty rotting from the inside. Within 3 years, the empire Qin Shi Huang had forged in blood and iron collapsed into chaos. Li Se was executed, Zhao Gao was assassinated, and the puppet emperor was forced to commit suicide. The dynasty that was meant to last 10,000 generations barely survived for 15 years. All because its founder, in his mad quest to live forever, entrusted his final moments to men who saw his corpse not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. A puppet they could use to rule an empire, even if just for 2 morbid, stinking months. The file on the corpse emperor is now sealed. The vault acquires new records of the unsettling and the unexplained every week. To ensure you are notified of every new acquisition, subscribe and activate your notifications. Until next time, remain vigilant. The darkest secrets are often hidden in plain sight.